Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight, in the face of an existential threat, what exactly can BC's provincial government do to boost our economy? Plus, we're booing their anthem, we're boycotting their bourbon. Is this show of Canadian solidarity against all things American productive, or have we chosen the low road? But first, Vancouver-Quilchena MLA Dallas Brodie faced public backlash after posting on social media that 0 child burials had been confirmed at the Kamloops residential school, taking aim at what she described as the, quote, multi-billion-dollar reconciliation industry. Then, BC Conservative leader John Rustad actually kicked Brodie out of the BC Conservative Party for mocking the testimony of residential school survivors, while other BC Conservatives left the party in Brodie's defense. Our guest tonight will explain why Brodie's words are indeed so hurtful and ignorant. The Intergovernmental Affairs Officer to the Musqueam First Nation and a board chair for the First Nations Health Council, he is Wade Grant. Wade, hello. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me back.
It's not lost on me that the last time you were here back in June of last year, you were also debunking misinformation around reconciliation. So I know that it is kind of a laborious thing for you to do, but I appreciate you being here nonetheless.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk about Dallas Brodie's initial comments. She was pointing to the Kamloops residential school, saying that, they had found these 215 anomalies that they thought may have been unmarked graves of children, and that to date, no bodies have been discovered. This seems to be factually true, at least on its surface. You were a vocal opponent of this. You criticized her for this. What exactly was so hurtful about her saying that?
Well, we have to know that residential schools, we know that children died there. We know children were abused there. We have direct testimony from residential school survivors that talked about the horrific things that happened to them. It's not up to us to go and dig up the Kamloops Indian Residential School. That's the Kamloops Indian band that has that right. It's their title and rights. They're the title and rights holders there, and they want to take the time because they know how difficult it's going to be to uncover anything, because there's still so many survivors that are trying to heal from there. I don't think we need to go and dig up bones to prove that children died in residential schools, and that's what's so hurtful, is that we're having to discuss this again and to be able to come to an agreement that residential schools were so horrific in a dark part of our past.
Do you feel that when people bring this up or start questioning, the number of bodies in unmarked graves and that sort of thing, they're trying to dismiss the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that we had in this country and all the testimony that you just alluded to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very ignorant of people to think that residential schools weren't as bad as they were. They were absolutely something that we should never forget, but never go back to. The actual, slogan of it in the late 1800s was to kill the Indian and the child, to take them away from their culture, to take them away from their families, so that they could be assimilated into greater Canadian society. So many thousands of kids were taken away. They're no longer able to speak their language, practice their culture, and pretty much not becoming and understanding their history and who they were. So that's a lost generation, or lost many generations of First Nations that lost out to being with their families and their communities.
Now, we'll get to the comments that John Rustad cites for actually kicking out Dallas Brodie out of the BC Conservative Party, but John Rustad himself said that he actually agreed that these comments were correct in terms of 0 bodies being discovered. What's your response to that John Rustad actually didn't have an issue with those initial comments that Dallas Brodie made?
Well, John Rustad knows better. He was the Minister of Indigenous Relations for many years under the Christy Clark government. He knows, and he's spoken to many of these survivors, and he knew that those words would be hurtful and harmful. He should have known better, because Dallas Brodie had made statements when she was running for Vancouver-Quilchena about First Nations people, telling them to go and claim their people from the downtown east side, side. We are working hard to alleviate things that we're not that are impacting our communities. Working hard to go and get our family members and to help them and heal them. So those types of words that she used were very hurtful during the election, and they were doubled down on when most recently.
Now let's talk about the comments that actually got Dallas Brodie kicked out of the Conservative Party by John Rustad. Basically, she was very rudely making fun of this idea of my truth or your truth, this idea of subjective truth or personalized truth compared to what she would say is only one objective truth. Can you kind of explain this idea of a personalized truth in the context of residential school survivor testimony?
Yeah, absolutely, because there were no written records of what had happened in there. Of course, there were so many different stories by different residential school survivors. They were not able to write down what had happened to them, but they do remember that. They had those oral histories. And oral history and oral testimony is just as valid as written history. This was proven in the Supreme Court of Canada. So their history and their understanding of what happened and their personalized abuse that they had undergone is something that we need to believe and work with them to help them heal. And that's what they did. They came out after so many years of keeping it under wraps and saying, I want to share this now. That was a very difficult thing for them to do, and it was a very strong thing for them to do. And we should lift them up and help them heal from that intergenerational trauma. And
so that idea of personalized truth, my truth, your truth, that's directly tied to the testimony of the survivors? Because Dallas Brodie came out and said, well, I never mocked survivor testimony.
Well, she used that very childish, voice that she used, because she said that, it's not about your truth or my truth. It's about what you said, objective truth. But there is that truth that these kids, these children had. And they, like I said, they're not able we're not able to share that in a book or in a journal. They're now sharing it with them after holding on to that pain for so many years. And that's really what upset and was so disappointing with her using that sort of voice when she talked about these people's individual hurt.
Really quickly, in about a minute or so, where do we go from here with someone like Dallas Brodie or someone else who this is their kind of hill to fight on?
I absolutely do not understand why this was her hill to fight on, and to go down this path. There's so many different things that are happening in this world that we should be focusing on, especially Ms. Brodie, knowing that she is the MLA for the Musqueam First Nation. Many residential school survivors that still live in the Musqueam Nation. There would have been an opportunity for her to come down and listen and learn, but she never picked up the phone to call. She graduated with Musqueam band members because she went to Point Grey Secondary School. She should understand that there is a very dark history, but she didn't want to do that. I don't think that there's an opportunity to do that now because she's still standing on that hill. So it's very disappointing that she's the MLA representing the Musqueam First Nation.
Wade, I would love to have you back on the show where you're not having to debunk misinformation, but nonetheless, I really do appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mo.
Folks, representing the Musqueam First Nation, he is Wade Grant. Now, after some business, the BC economy is in trouble and under threat. So what can Premier David Eby and the BC government realistically do to give it a boost? We'll talk about it up next.